Hello, everyone. I'm Jeannie Marie, George's younger sister. Sadly, I could not be with you tonight as you celebrate, so I have prepared this video to give you a better understanding of the man before you. 'Twas a night like any other growing up in Baltimore. Pop snoring on the sofa while Gunsmoke played on our black and white TV. Mama cleaning the kitchen and making lunches. I'm just getting off the phone with my friend Karen. And Georgie, where is Georgie? Georgie's upstairs studying for his chemistry test, dear. You know, you really should try to be a little more like your brother. He works so hard to be at the top of his class. Yes, Georgie was the apple of our mother's eye. The sun rose and set on my brother. There was nothing he could do wrong in her eyes. Going up to bed, I can see the light beneath my brother's door and hear that god-awful opera music playing. Hey, I was 13 and it was the 60s. I spend almost an hour getting ready for bed and finally slip beneath the covers and drift off to sleep. Have you ever had that feeling, you know the one, where you just know that someone is watching you? I woke up that night knowing that I was not alone. I could feel someone watching me. Slowly I turned around in my bed, and there, smashed up against my second-story bedroom window, was a psycho with a stocking stretched over his face. I tried to scream, but only a strangled cry came out. I flew down the stairs, crying to my father, who was not very happy about being woke. Of course, he came upstairs and there was no one there. We went into my brother's room because I knew it had to be him. But he was sitting calmly at his desk studying. At this point, I figured I was dangerously close to getting smacked, so I let it drop. But I knew it was him. I knew because there was a stocking sticking out from under his bed. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Let's go back to when little Georgie Porgy was only 3 years old. Daddy worked the late shift, and Uncle Buddy was dropping Mama and Georgie off after spending the day with Aunt Helen. We lived in an old home in Baltimore City when Georgie was young, years before my arrival. Our parents rented out the second story of the home, although the Christensens were away. The front of the house was quite pretty with an arched entrance that always sort of reminded me of a church. Dad, living in a church. Our front door had a beautiful beveled glass front, and Mama kept a Venetian blind hanging on the door. But you could still see inside. As Mama was turning the key in the door, little Georgie says to her in a serious, hushed voice, "Mama, don't go in there. There's a lady with black teeth." Well, Mama grabs Georgie and runs down to where Uncle Buddy is waiting and yells for him to check the house. My uncle goes in and checks every room. When Mama is satisfied that Georgie was just imagining what he saw, Uncle Buddy leaves. Upon watching Uncle Buddy pull away from the curb, little Georgie looks up at our poor dear mother and says, "Mama, Uncle Buddy didn't check upstairs. I bet that's where she's hiding." Well, Mama grabbed Georgie and ran up the street to the Winters house. Mr. Jack woke up and came over to check out the upstairs apartment. Now understand, Mr. Jack is on to Georgie. He knows what a devil is lurking between those big ears. He gives Georgie the look and goes back home. Well, by now you can just imagine that Mama is quite exhausted from the excitement of the evening, so she takes Georgie into the bedroom to get ready for sleep. And what does he say to her just as she's getting him into bed? Mommy, nobody checked under the bed. Georgie got a good spanking that night, although it didn't stop him from terrorizing us for years to come. Yes, growing up with George could be both entertaining and quite traumatizing, and it didn't end when George moved on into adulthood. In fact, let me tell you about a night many years later. We had moved out of the city and into the country. It was lovely on Goat Hill Road, and yes, we had a goat on Goat Hill Road. Everyone had several acres of ground, so it was very, very quiet in the country, and being so far out, there were no street lights. Our house sat at the top of a winding driveway, and the carport only allowed for one car, so my parking spot was off to the side of the property next to a line of trees. I was all grown up and working as a bartender, so I got home very late at night. George was living on his own in Baltimore and would frequently stay the night at our house when he came out to visit. Now, please understand, I had grown up to become a very paranoid young woman. Everything I did was in anticipation of encountering a psycho. Getting in the car, I would practice how I would position my hands to remove the plastic bag that the psycho in the back seat would throw over my head. When I drove down bridges, I would judge how far I would have to swim to shore should a psycho run me off the bridge. When I went shopping, I would make sure and wear heavy socks and shoes so that I could fight off the psycho that was hiding under my car and attempting to drag me under. Are you seeing a pattern here? My doctor says I have an irrational fear of psychos and I'm unlikely to ever actually encounter one in my lifetime. Obviously, he doesn't know George. But I digress. I had a ritual for walking from my car to the house, and I practiced it each and every time I came home in the dark. I'd make sure I had a cigarette lit, ready to burn the psycho in the eyes, and I would place my keys in between my fingers so I could punch the psycho waiting to attack me. Then one fall night, it happened. My every fear was realized. I had worked a very long shift and was exhausted when I pulled into the driveway. I prepared my cigarette and keys and proceeded to get out of my car. I had taken just 4 steps when I heard a man clear his throat. Now remember, there are no lights outside. The only illumination is from the moon. I turned in the direction of the sound, and there, standing alongside the driveway, was a man in a long trench coat and fedora hat. The psycho! Sheer terror consumed me. My eyes became cloudy, and there was a swishing sound in my ears. And that's when I realized I was losing consciousness on the cold stone driveway, keys digging into my fingers, cigarette burning into my coat. And that's when I heard it. That's when I heard my brother laughing and laughing and laughing. Yes, growing up with George was never boring. Over the years, I was locked in closets, electrocuted by the hand generator. Georgie will explain that when this video is over. Oh, and don't forget to ask him about the chemical solution he used to paint onto the toilet seat and phone dial that would explode when you touched it. As a matter of fact, I still have a hard time going to the bathroom at night, and I have a need to wipe the toilet seat down before I can sit on it. Yes, growing up with George was traumatizing, but it was also great fun. My brother took me to my first play, my first opera, my first ballet, even my first apartment. We even worked together. George, my brother, I miss your laugh. I miss your stories. I even miss your political arguments. I miss you, my brother. I wish I could be there as you celebrate this momentous birthday. And, may I add, one that I won't be celebrating for many years to come. I love you, my brother. Thank you for all the memories. Oh, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank my beautiful sister in law for taking care of my brother all these years. I love you. Happy birthday. And George, don't worry. Be happy. Good night.